This is the Try Swim Coach Podcast, where the most difficult leg of the triathlon becomes your friend, leaving your struggles and your competition behind you. TrySwimCoach.com, helping you to laugh at the water.
Welcome back to Try Swim Coach. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 124. And in just a minute, I have an interview with Coach Dominic Latella of SwimBox. And we get into a lot of interesting topics. You definitely don't want to miss this one. We've got everything from how to come back from time off from swimming to off-season tips to cadence, which is a lot of people's favorite topic. Yeah, you'll get a lot out of this one. So yeah, I just want to say thanks for listening. It's been a few months since I've uploaded a podcast here, but we're still around, and the website is tryswimcoach.com. We've changed a few things around a little bit, and if you want to check it out, you can see what's going on there. It is coming up. I'm releasing this show sort of end of October, and so this is the triathlon off season. That it is often the time that people kind of sink back into their couches and relax for a few months, ease into the holidays, maybe have a little too much of the carbohydrates, and gain a little weight before January rolls around, and then start the process all over again. So I am going to be running a webinar here pretty soon called The Fit Triathlete, and we're going to talk about how to avoid all that and how to really hone in your fitness when it comes to your life and also just your triathlon shape. So just pay attention to the email list. If you're not on the email list, you can get there by going to tryswimcoach.com or tryswimlessons.com. So that's about all I had. Without further ado, here is my interview with Coach Dominic. Have a great week of training, and we will talk to you soon. All right. Well, I'm excited to have Dominic Latella back on the show again for, I believe it's the third time.
Third time.
Yeah. Welcome back, Dominic.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be back on the podcast.
Yeah. And just a little, we've had him on before, and I think a lot of people that listen know who he is, but he's a swim coach in Virginia. And he runs a company called SwimBox, and they do one-on-one lessons, and he also does swim clinics.
Right.
And we work together a lot. So Dominic and his wife, Lissa, help out with some of the Try Swim Coach stuff, including the feedback for our members that submit their videos that want to get feedback on their strokes.
Yeah, always a pleasure to do that. It's actually really fun to do that, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way for everyone to learn. Like we have these discussions. We have a Facebook group. We have these discussions sometimes about like different videos that people post, and I think everyone learns about that. And you can see, because there's a lot of repetitive issues that people have with swimming, and a lot of people think like whatever their issue is, they're the only ones in the world that have this problem. Like whether it's breathing or sinking or kicking or whatever, it's easy to get caught in that. Like I'm the only person in the world that has this.
Right. Yeah. I actually think that's one of the most interesting parts of being a swim coach is, yes, everyone is different and everyone is going to have different needs as far as what they can do. But at the same time, we have a pretty good understanding right now of sort of like what needs to be achieved. And then it's, well, this is what needs to be achieved. How does this person need to achieve it? And then how does this other person need to achieve it? Is it the same way? Maybe not. Yeah. So it's kind of like a little puzzle you get to put together with the little, just like with every puzzle, you could look at the cover and go, okay, well, this is what the puzzle looks like.
Yeah.
How do I find those pieces? So it's kind of like that. That's how I look at swim coaching sometimes.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, because people do have different ways of learning the exact same thing. Like you tell somebody something and they do it exactly as you just said it. And then the next person you work with, it's like you do the same thing and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I can't
Yeah. And so to me, I love that challenge. And it always feels a little bit like telepathy. Like if I could figure out a way to put into that person's mind what it is I want them to do. How do I paint that picture? How do I get them to actually know what I'm talking about? Like you said, sometimes it clicks. And I've started to expand my cues, I guess is the best way to put it, where I use any cue I can. I'll steal it from strength and conditioning coaches. I'll steal cues from other swim coaches. I'll steal cues from physical therapists. I'll steal cues from wherever I can, just so I can say the same thing in 18 different ways.
Yeah, that's absolutely needed. So now we had some points that we wanted to talk about. And the first one was teaching and learning in progressions and phases. Now, how is that something that people listening here can learn from? Like, what are these progressions and phases?
So I think it can be really obvious, right? So I'll show you, I'll demonstrate right now. If someone needs to learn how to swim, the first thing they have to do is learn how to float, right? Mm-hmm. So that is a priority for that person, is learning how to float. So that's a phase. But within that phase is a progression. So now you've learned how to float. Well, now you need to learn how to kick. And now you need to learn how to use your arms. And now you need to learn how to rotate. And now you need to learn how to breathe, right? Mm-hmm. So within that phase of, we're going to call it learn to swim, there's a progression to learning how to swim. And so then there's another phase, right? Well, that another phase, or that next phase, is like what I would call a beginner, where they're refining some of the movements. I would not have an expectation of that person to be making similar movements to like Katie Ledecky. Mm-hmm. She has a lot more experience. She's in a different phase than that person. And it's really important for people to understand progressions and phases, especially when they try to approach swimming on their own or through videos or through books, and even just differing advices from coaches. So I might say something that some other coach might disagree with, but I might be speaking from another phase perspective.
Right.
Going back to that learn to swim phase, when you teach someone to learn how to swim, you have to teach them to exhale through their nose. You do that so that they don't get water up their nose and they don't want to feel that burn and that discomfort. They'll stop swimming immediately. They'll never pick the sport of swimming if that happens, or they'll be very resistant at least. So that's an early coaching phase. And I'm not sure why, but a lot of coaches don't progress past that. Mm-hmm. It's a learn to swim and a beginner type of phase. But when swimmers start becoming more intermediate, more able, they need to change the way that they breathe. And that's something that I coach very often, just because of the clientele that I work with. And so what I coach when people have demonstrated a certain level of proficiency is that they need to be exhaling their air either through their nose or their mouth or both as they're turning their head. So as their face reaches the surface, they automatically inhale because they've caused negative pressure in their lungs, and their lungs create somewhat of a vacuum and inhale for them. Mm-hmm. Try to explain that to a beginner. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Right? But it's about being appropriate in the phase and what you're reading about. And I think just people need to be careful. A lot of the information that's put out on the internet is good information, but directed to beginners.
Yeah.
So what that leads to is a lot of confusion. If someone's reading something that's geared towards beginner, and maybe their swim coach or their tri coach is trying to progress them a little bit more, and they go back to this, article that is geared towards beginners, which would make sense. There's more lower level swimmers than there are elite level swimmers.
Right.
So you want to, when you write an article or a blog post, you have to kind of gear it towards a wider base, typically. So, just being careful about what you're reading, understanding that, that might have been good for me last year, but this year I'm a little bit more advanced, so I need to be looking for more advanced technique. So having those phases is really important. Another example of phase learning would be when I teach a beginner how to swim and their goal is triathlon, I use catch-up drill as an opportunity for them to actually do during their swim. Mm-hmm. For their first race, it might be the perfect way to swim freestyle because it's something familiar. It slows them down. It gives them something to focus on. By no means, in my opinion, is it a good freestyle, right? It's catch-up drill, but it might be appropriate for that person's level or phase of learning that they're in.
Yeah. It totally makes sense. And when you were talking, I thought about I'm sort of making a little bit of a comeback with swimming. I had to take some time off with a shoulder injury and blah, 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 whatever. But I recently just started getting back in the pool and doing just a few laps at a time. And one thing that I have been doing is I've been doing that kind of long gliding, kind of not necessarily gliding, but just like long strokes. And that's really helped me to get back to my stroke. I noticed that a lot of things slipped after you take time off out of the water. Mm-hmm. Things just tend to slip. And so instead of trying to do as much as I possibly can, or trying to do intervals or sprints or anything like that. I just focus on these long strokes, kind of like the old people call it the total immersion method, even though it's not really total immersion because they didn't invent it. It was invented like a long time before that. But it's that idea of long strokes. Now, if I were to be coaching somebody and teaching them long strokes, that could be really helpful, right? Like, especially if they're in a stage that like what I'm in, they're coming back, they're out of shape, they're trying to get their stroke back. Teaching that long strokes would be awesome. But then if they're in the middle of their triathlon season, they've been training swimming for like 6 to 8 months, they've got their stroke up to a certain point, like continuing to just emphasize the long strokes, probably not going to help them, especially if they want to go faster in their races, right?
Right. And that's actually a really good point. And by the way, kudos to you for getting back to swimming. I know how hard it is to come back to after an injury. I had surgery on my shoulders when I was in college, and getting back in the water was terrifying. So I get it. But no, it's a good point. It also really depends on somebody's goals, right? Some people's goals are just to check the box and go, I did my race. I finished my Ironman, right?
Yeah.
And so then you have to consider, well, what's the easiest way for this person to finish the race? But then you have other people that say, I want to win my age group,
right?
Or I want to win overall. And that's where some of the things that I might talk about in videos or on podcasts or whatever might rub people the wrong way or make them question what they're doing. And that's not the intent. The intent is just so people that are looking for some higher levels of swimming understand. So to kind of break that down a little bit, the way that you just described, the way that you're swimming with those long semi-gliding strokes, we'll call it.
Yeah.
The issue with that is momentum and velocity, right? So every time that you glide, your velocity is decreasing. So that means each pull you take, you have to pull really hard in order to get that velocity back up. So if you could kind of like picture like a graph, it's a big peak and then a big valley and a big peak and a big valley. And we don't want that. We wouldn't want that in running, right? We wouldn't want that in cycling. We want to have the most sort of continual velocities possible. How little can those peaks and valleys get to? So this is where stroke cadence actually comes in to play. And that if you have a really slow cadence, you're going to have those big peaks and valleys. But if you speed up your cadence, now your momentum is more continuous. You don't have to use as much energy as you would if you had those big peaks and valleys. So I would say a year, maybe 2 years ago, did not really care about cadence very much. I never really considered it as something that important because I always kind of thought, oh, well, everyone's going to have their own set cadence. Everyone's going to figure out what they can do cadence wise. It's not been until this year that I've seen how powerful cadence can be. I grew up where, and this is still a thing, unfortunately, where what was really important was how few strokes you can get across the pool with.
Right.
And that isn't a really great number for anything other than to tell your friends you could take, 8 strokes to get across the pool.
Yeah.
What I'm more curious about is, can you maintain that? If you do 8 strokes for a 25, well, if you did a 200, could you still do 8 strokes every single 25?
Right.
And then if you're doing only 8 strokes for that 200, is it actually fast, or is your 200 time now double because you decided to kick on your side for, for an extended period of time in order to make it that way?
Right.
So when it comes to stroke count, the only thing I really care about is someone is under 25 strokes per 25 yards. Most people should be able to travel 1 yard per stroke. So if someone's higher than 25 strokes per 25 yards, then we would have to kind of like take a look and step back and see what's going on there. Are they just slipping through the water? Are they causing a lot of drag? Something like that. But more importantly, and I actually learned this from Terry Laughlin, I remember sitting down on his porch and talking to him about this, was that the most important thing isn't necessarily stroke count, but stroke consistency. Right. So making sure, going back to that 200, if you're going to do 8 strokes for that first 25, you better do 8 strokes for that last 25.
Right.
And that's where cadence really is important, in that if we can figure out a good cadence for somebody, and I think for me and the clients that I work with people all ages from, I think right now my youngest client is 12. My oldest client is 72.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, they're going to have a different cadence. But figuring out a range that I want to see people in. And so for me, my range is no lower than 60 strokes per minute.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on the really low end. And then no more, we're going to say for distance swimming, no more than probably 70 to 72 strokes per minute. At that point, you're like a hummingbird.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's great. I'm glad that you gave these numbers out, because those are the questions that I get a lot, where it's like we start talking about stroke count and how it's important, but I try not to emphasize numbers, because it's like then people get hung up on that. But then they always ask me like, well, what should I be at? What should I be, this or should I be that? Or, Michael Phelps does 10 strokes per, whatever. And it's like, well, let's leave out Michael Phelps and let's talk about what you're trying to do and see what range you're in now. Like start with your current situation, and then let's see if we can improve on that. Yeah.
And one of the things that I've really kind of latched onto in the last, I don't know, midsummer or so, was this idea that good cadence and a paddle equal power, not necessarily pulling hard. So going back to like the learning phases, if I was working with a beginner athlete and I wanted them to travel through the water faster, I would ask them not to increase their cadence, but to just pull harder. Mm-hmm. More likely than not, when a beginner tries to increase their cadence, they lose their paddle and just slip through the water.
Right.
So it's not very helpful. But for maybe an intermediate to advanced swimmer, the approach is, how early can you set your paddle? Can you keep your paddle, I don't want to say shallow, but not deep. And what I mean by that is, in swimming, if your arm is deeper, you will be pulling against more resistance, right? The deeper the water is, the more dense the water is. The problem with that is it is questioning how you can maintain it. That's usually something that's done by sprinters, having a really almost straight arm under the water, not completely straight, but almost straight, because they only have to go 50 meters or 100 meters, right? But it's not maintainable for 200 or even upwards to that. So trying to get people to understand having an early paddle and then a little bit more shallow than they probably think or want, and a fast cadence will always equal power. And I first started to see this using the Vasa erg, actually. So with the erg, you can open up the vent to give more resistance, or you can close the vent for less resistance. And I had Lissa, my wife, on the erg doing some training, and I looked at her stroke rate, and it was really slow. It was like a 45 stroke rate, and the vent was, opened almost all the way. So, and her wattage was really low as well. It was kind of interesting. So I said, okay, well, let's close the vent. I want you to keep so now there's less resistance. So keep up your cadence to, on the Vasa, I think I had her at like trying to get to 60 strokes per minute. As soon as she did that, her wattage went up over 100, which is pretty good for no resistance. Right. And so that really helped me start to piece together this idea. And then I'm just lucky enough that a lot of my clients are really talented athletes, and some of them are coaches, tri-coaches, and have a really good understanding of the other disciplines. And so I was telling someone this, and they were like, oh, it's just like cycling. And I had no idea what they meant. Yeah. But apparently there is a concept in cycling that you don't want to have your bike on the biggest gear trying to generate a lot of power. It's smarter to have a smaller gear at a higher cadence. Oh, that sounds really familiar. That sounds like what I just said. Yeah. And it has been working really well as long as people are willing to accept it. The resistance to it is for them. The people that are going from like a deeper stroke to a more shallow pull, is they feel like they're not pulling anything. Right. They're so used to the big amount of resistance, it feels like they're not doing anything. And so it's really interesting to be able to show them through video how their stroke is changing under the water, but then also show them through the endless pool how much faster they're swimming, and then also show them with their heart rate that they're not as exacerbated as they were before, swimming at a faster pace for a longer period of time too. So it's been really cool to see that progression of my swimmers, my clients that I work with a lot, from going from like maybe beginners or intermediate up to this more advanced concept of cadence and paddle.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's something that was kind of left off. Like my early stages of coaching, I was kind of teaching more of the, you just need to be efficient and forget about like cadence. And people would kind of ask about that because they watch the Olympics and they're like, well, shouldn't I be doing it just like the Olympians? And isn't that the way to go? And then like you were saying, it's like, well, no, because they're sprinting. They're doing 100 meters or 50 meters, or maybe, 200 meters is still a sprint. And even in the mile in the Olympics is still like much closer to like a middle distance, because you don't have anything after that. You're leaving it all on the table. And there's a little bit difference. I mean, I think you can learn a lot more from the milers in the Olympics than the sprinters, but it's still going to be a little bit different. And especially considering, like we talked about, the different levels and different phases, you're going to have a wide range, I think, of things that you're going to teach at different stages. So and I think, and just one more thing to add to that is that there was, back in the old days, there was a swimmer named Janet Evans who was like way ahead of her time. I mean, she was blowing, like the world records she was just shattering them. I mean, like by minutes, and it was crazy. And she was just way ahead of everybody. And yet her stroke, and she was a distance swimmer, and her stroke was, she had that kind of windmill. Like they always said, she's got the windmill stroke. And it's like, it defied all logic, because she's like a distance swimmer, but she's doing this windmill, which looked like, it looked like a crazy stroke. But then underwater, it looked very similar to everybody else. And it was very efficient underwater. So.
Right. And, also to note, Janet Evans is a tiny person.
Yeah.
I met her once when I was coaching at Asphalt Green, and she was tiny.
Yeah.
And so, that's also something that has to be considered. Most of the females that I work with, if they're under 5'5" or around 5'5", I'm going to have them have a really fast cadence. I'm going to make sure that they set a paddle and they keep that cadence.
Yeah.
So it seems so simple to say, set your paddle, keep your arms moving. I know it's not that simple. And it does take a lot of time to get there, because before you can even get there, you have to learn how to even set a good paddle, which can take some people years.
Yeah.
So I'll pick on Lissa, and she'll openly say that she still has a hard time setting a good catch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the same with me. I was talking about like getting back into swimming. I know right now, if you put me on video, I would be really embarrassed to be seeing myself, because like the things that I teach and what I'm doing right now are not the same. And it's definitely something that is a lot of practice. Yeah.
And it gets hard with the way information is exchanged over the internet. It's not always clear who that information is for. All right. So like if somebody was being sneaky and they took a video of you swimming now, all right, there would be no explanation that, he's in a building phase or a learning phase.
Right.
All right. And that's the problem. And I think one of the things that Lissa and I try to do with answering people's questions for Try Swim Coach is give what we teach, but also trying to learn where that person is and their ability. So sometimes we'll just get random questions like, why can't I take a breath? And I have to then ask that person more questions to learn about them.
Right.
So I try not to just rattle off what I think people should be doing. I want to know what that individual person should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the tricky thing about coaching, is there's a lot of listening that needs to happen and understanding, and before you can start, giving advice and teaching and getting them like in the right direction. Yeah. So I think, even I'll use myself as an example. I just admitted that a year, maybe 2 years ago, I didn't pay attention to cadence. For me, my focus was on other things. And so now I'm in a different phase of my coaching where I can focus on that. For me, the most important thing, hands down, in any swimmer is body posture and position. I think you know that from our previous conversations. Yep. I don't really care majority of the time how strong somebody is or how hard somebody can pull. It doesn't mean anything if they don't have a good body position. But now from a lot of my clients, they've achieved better body postures, and that we can focus more on propulsion. And that kind of goes back to the conversation about learning in phases and
over a season, changing what the focus is. So I do this as well. We are now approaching the off season. Most people are in their off season. I still have a couple of clients that have a race in November. So right now, we're not adding any new technique. Mm-hmm. It's too late. They've just got to make it through their last race.
Right.
And so what we've been doing is more sort of being race prepared versus doing technique work. Mm-hmm. As soon as they're done in November, we start right back with fundamentals, foundations of things, breaking their stroke down, building it back up. And then as we get through probably like February, March, then we start kind of just determining what we need to be focused on more or less. A good example might be I had a client who had a real issue with having a relaxed recovery on her right arm. Mm-hmm. She always kind of dropped her elbow during the relaxed recovery. We basically ran out of time. She could not make the change in sort of the time frame between January and March. So her first races were the end of April, beginning of May. So we just said, all right, well, that's the technique we can't use. So now you're going to swim this season with a straight arm recovery on their right side. Mm-hmm. Right. So she did that. It worked well for her. She was getting, best times in her swims. That season ended. We went right back to doing foundations and we focused on getting that right arm doing a relaxed recovery. Now this year she's able to do that relaxed recovery on her right arm. All right. So it's almost like being patient, understanding that, all right, at this point in my training, I need to be focused on other things. I can't just be focused on what my right arm is doing.
Right.
So it's, any good tri coach obviously is going to have peaks and valleys in training, but they also should have periods of time where you want to be more focused on certain levels of technique and certain concentrations of whatever discipline you need to work on. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Yeah, totally. And so you were talking about the off season. Of course, if people are listening, they're in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. You're going into the warmer time of the year, so it is not off season. But this can be helpful as well. So, what would you say as some of the main things to focus on if you're if somebody that doesn't have a coach that's a triathlete mm-hmm. that you just finished up a race in September, October, and you've got probably 5, 6, 7 months before your next race. So what would you say to focus on at this point?
Bringing it back to just low intensity, fundamental movements, learning good posture, good rotation, practicing your breath. So maybe somebody listening is going, oh, well, I blow air out of my nose. Maybe I'm ready to start changing the way that I breathe. This would be the time to start trying to practice that. Mm-hmm. So maybe the off season is a good opportunity to try to not maintain what you learned from last year, but build off of what you learned last year around the same time.
Right. And so the other thing that I talk about is that because during the season for triathletes, there's so many things to focus on. Swim, bike, run, all the technique, the workouts, it's a lot of time. But would you say that this is a good time to also work on strength training?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I see a lot of my clients do is back off of the bike or the run. It's whatever their preference is kind of. If they kind of are more naturally inclined to cycling, well, they'll back off the run a little bit.
Yeah.
In our area, Northern Virginia, people don't like to back off of anything really. So they will do like a marathon in December or January or something like that. So they'll kind of back off the bike, keep up their running, but it's also a great opportunity to increase your swimming.
Yeah.
And if you can't increase your swimming, or if you don't want to keep running, strength and conditioning, this is the absolute best time to do strength and conditioning as a triathlete, because as you get closer and closer to your season, your weight training should be coming down mm-hmm. as we're going to call it your aerobic training for your run and your bike and your swim would be going up and starting to peak. So it's almost like you want to start out high with your strength and conditioning now, knowing that it's going to go down to sort of just a maintenance level when you're kind of in full swing.
Right. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of selfishly ask you about is this whole idea of taking time off and then coming back. As we know, as much as we're talking about swimming here in kind of late October, it's inevitable that a lot of triathletes will, as soon as they're done with their season or their last race, they'll just kind of hang it up for a while and go back to maybe eating cheesecake and drinking some beer and, just kind of kicking back. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's January. I got to do my New Year's thing and get back in shape. And, oh, I should jump back in the pool. And so they've been out for like 2-3 months. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on what to kind of do once you've done that, when you've taken that time off and you got to get back into it?
I would first recommend that you don't take off completely.
Yeah.
Maybe you find your way to a pool once a week.
Yeah.
I mean, something, because the swimming is going to go away the fastest, So if you can just find a way to stay in a pool, if not, if you just are like, I am so overtraining, I just need to just put on some weight for winter, stay warm. I get it. I would say kind of revisit the drills, kind of like you're doing, revisit the drills that you kind of started off with when you first started swimming, maybe going back to the Try Swim Coach program and going, okay, let me redo these drills a little bit. And then after that, it's what I like to do or have people do is track intensity. I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but are you familiar with USRPT training?
That sounds familiar, but I haven't.
So USRPT, I'm going to mess this up. Ultra sprint race pace training.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. And it's a very specific protocol. And I've really started to enjoy having my clients keep up with this type of training. And so I'll give an example of what a USRPT workout would look like. It would be kind of your standard warm up. So it might be like a 500, maybe some drill work, maybe a sort of continuation of warm up, a set that's going to get your heart rate up. So maybe like 850s of descending 1 through 4, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then the first main set would be a series of 25s, maybe 50s, but if you're just getting back, it should be 25s. So it would sound something like 30 25s. Mm-hmm. And the trick here is that there has to be an expectation that you will not finish all 30 25s, because you need to be responsible and mature enough to recognize when you failed. So what that means is with each 25, you have a goal time. So that goal time might be, 25 seconds. All right. So with that goal time, you also have an interval time, typically around no more than 20 seconds rest. And it can be less, but we'll say 20 seconds rest to start with. So now you have a goal time of 25. That means your interval would be 45. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're doing your 25 and you're on number 10 and you go slower than 25 seconds. You went at 26. That means you failed. And that's okay. You failed once. So you're going to take 2 45 seconds portion of rests. So you get an extra rest. It's an opportunity to refocus, evaluate what went wrong. Maybe you just lost focus. Maybe you got so fatigued that your technique broke down. All right. So you've taken your extra rest. You go again, you pick up with number 11, you get number 11, you get number 12, you get number 13, you get number 14, you get to 15, you went to 26 again. So you failed again, you just stop. You move on to the next set, which would be a drill set. You do that drill set, you take an extra minute rest, and then you have main set number 2, which might be like 20 50s and a similar goal time. And so now the goal time for a 50 would be 51. So we expect that you're not going to be able to do a 50 and 50. So we'll say, well, now your goal time is 51. We'll add 20 seconds to that, and that's your rest interval, and you follow that same pattern. Well, maybe you only get 2 50s done. You stop, do your drill set, and you warm down, you're done. And I like these types of workouts for getting back into shape.
Yeah.
Because there's always drill included. There's always probably 3 or 4 opportunities to do drill work. But then there's the main sets that are opportunities to swim fast. And I think people underestimate that. People underestimate how important it is to swim the speed that you're going to be racing at, and not just try to swim nonstop continuously at a slow pace. Because then you're just training yourself neurologically to swim at a slow pace, and you will never be able to get over that plateau. So in swimming, it's pretty rare for somebody to give a workout that's, go swim for 40 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Right? Because what would you do? You would go, well, I can't swim my 200 speed, for 40 minutes. I'm going to slow myself down. I'm going to slow down a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So instead of trying to just survive, all you're really trying to do is swim fast with good technique.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense? And so when it comes to triathletes in general, they're always so much easier to work with in that they already have aerobic capacity built into their training. But for swimmers individually, swimmers don't have awesome aerobic capacity. It's easier for a swimmer to build aerobic capacity on land.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I know it kind of got into the weeds there a little bit answering your question, but this is how I kind of have been steering my clients. And with those USRPT style workouts, it's really easy to modify them too.
Yeah.
So they can do that same exact workout twice a week. There's no change unless they get all the way to the end of their main set. So if they actually did all 30 25s, then we could say, okay, well now let's go ahead and shorten the rest time or speed up the interval or the goal time rather. Or it can be, let's do 50s and 75s since we're training for a 1.2 or 2.4. Yeah. So it's really easy to kind of add in or make those adaptations for those people.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think people appreciate getting a workout out of this podcast because there's, a lot of times we just talk about theory and technique and stuff, but actually being able to do that workout, I think it's cool because it's also part of what we try to overcome is the boredom that can happen with swimming is like looking at that black line at the bottom of the pool. It's like you said, a 40-minute swim, it's like, oh my God, that sounds horrible. Even someone that likes swimming is going to be like, I can't really do that. But yeah, like this kind of workout and making it fun it's the way to go. And of course you're getting all the benefits out of it as well. And I was going to say also that you were talking about like just getting in the pool. And like, I've been doing this thing where I've been just swimming twice a week and it's amazing how I'm making improvements. Like, even though it's not ideal, I mean, twice a week isn't the perfect thing, but I'm definitely getting the feel for the water back. I'm definitely feeling stronger every time. And it's like, so if you can somehow get twice a week throughout the off season or the winter, that's going to help you so much later.
It really will. It really will. And I think it goes back to the idea of phases. So right now you're going to see gains from twice a week, but at some point that's going to plateau.
Right.
And you're going to have to go 3 times a week and then 4 times a week, maybe 5 times a week.
We'll see. I don't know about that, but maybe let's work on maybe 3.
All right. Set our bar low.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. So this has been awesome. So before we wrap up here, we want to talk a little bit about, so you're doing some swim clinics and we're kind of co-branding or co-sponsoring these clinics. So let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah. So one of the things I think you do an amazing job at is sort of giving education and giving opportunities for people to learn remotely. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I am terrible at is that. So I wanted to combine forces and say, you know what, I'm really good at teaching in person and I really want to be in person and on deck with these people and on deck with people across the country. So we kind of brainstormed an idea together where we would do some clinics regionally. I was thinking maybe 4 clinics a year, find some different places to go and host maybe a 2-day long clinic, kind of reinforcing the technique standards that Tri Swim Coach has and giving people opportunity for on deck coaching and getting advice and kind of for a weekend, just eating, sleeping and breathing, swimming. And I think it can be a really fun opportunity to meet a lot of people and help a lot of people too. Mm-hmm. So we got to figure out some more of the details, but I know they're coming. So 2019, I think that's when we'll be able to start as next year. And we'll see how early we can get started. Maybe in February, maybe earlier. We'll see.
Yeah, cool. And anyone that's a Tri Swim Coach member, we're going to be offering a discount. So if you're a member, you get a discount and you have higher priority of getting into those clinics. I can't say guaranteed because these might sell out fast and it's hard to guarantee that kind of thing. But definitely, we'll be offering that discount and encouraging people to attend. And hopefully we'll get like the bi-coastal, at least, within the US. I know you guys are having some things planned in Europe as well. But for now, we're focused on East Coast, US, and then West Coast. So, yeah. I mean, that's typically works best. But, I think we were planning on sending out a poll to figure out where people actually wanted us to go. Yeah. So if anyone's listening and sees that poll, please let us know. We really want to kind of service the areas that want to be serviced. Right. And if you're not following our Facebook fan page, that's where the poll is going to go up. So just check out, it's facebook.com/TriSwimCoach. and you can get all the swimming info you need there. So
cool. One other thing that I wanted to bring up was SwimBox is starting to sort of grow very quickly. And if there's any coaches or people that are interested in coaching swimming, any level of coaching ability, even if it's your first year ever coaching, or if you're a tri coach, but you want to be more involved as a swim coach, reach out to me. You can reach me at Dominic@theswimbox.com, and you spell my name Dominic. We are looking for coaches in multiple cities. We're specifically very interested in LA right now. There's some potential opportunity for us to open a SwimBox in LA, but we need coaches. So if anyone's interested, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions and work with them and do whatever we need to do.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it'd be nice to see some more locations like pop up around the country.
We're working on it.
Yeah, maybe go international someday.
Let's worry about domestic first.
Yeah, hard enough to do the local stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, man. Well, Dominic, thanks so much for coming on. That was just awesome. I really like, our chats and all the information that you can relay with swimming. I think it's just super helpful.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. And if anyone's just listening to this and has questions about anything I said or wants to have a conversation about anything that I've said, I always try to make myself available to answer those questions. So you can reach me at my email address. Like I said, Dominic@theswimbox.com. I'm happy to either set up Skype calls or try to just talk over email. I'm busy. I'm sure other people are busy, so it can be a little hard, but I'm always willing to try. So.
Awesome. Yeah. And I don't even think I mentioned your URL. It's theswimbox.com if you want to set up a lesson with Dominic.
Yeah. So thank you again.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. And have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to another episode covering swimming and triathlon mastery. To get your free online swim clinic, just go to tryswimlessons.com. Give us your name and email, and we'll have session number 1 off to you right away. Begin your process of befriending the swim and laughing at the water now.